Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And today's episode, my friends, the title tells it all. The New Jersey Devils and general manager Tom Fitzgerald are indeed at the crossroads. With the trade deadline exactly 1 week away from today, many fans are clamoring and getting impatient for Tom Fitzgerald to make a move and help bolster this New Jersey Devils lineup. Now, I personally hit the panic button about 5 weeks ago. This team looks nowhere near the team we saw in December. Heading into the Christmas break, they were one of the best teams in the NHL. They set an NHL record, allowing only 20 shots or less in 7 consecutive games. I mean, mind-blowing to think that this group set an NHL record, and where we are today. They look nothing like the team that we saw in December, and many of us were super jacked at that time, myself included. I mean, they were really looking like the team we all expected. And now online, many people are calling for Tom Fitzgerald's head. There's the people on the other dramatic side of it saying how great Fitzgerald is and he can do no wrong. And the reality is, I do believe, like most things, that the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I do not think he's the amazing general manager that a lot of people are making him out to be. And I do not think he's the worst general manager ever and yada, yada. I mean, I do think it's somewhere near in the middle. But I do think the questions and criticisms at the moment are somewhat valid in my opinion. I do think Tom Fitzgerald had a fantastic offseason. I've talked about that since the summer and multiple times since, finally addressing the long overdue situation in net, bringing in Jacob Markstrom. Markey was playing at a Vezina level before he went down with the injury. Hopefully he comes back soon and can really kind of jumpstart this team. He basically stole Kovacevic from the Canadiens. That was a phenomenal move. The Paul Cotter trade, while Cotter has cooled off dramatically, I do think he's one of the more physical guys in our lineup, and I do like him for this group. Brendan Dillon, Pesce, Stefan Nason. I was very happy with the offseason, and I was very hopeful that this Devils team would be much improved over last season. Now, again, after the Christmas break, it all seems to have fallen apart, and a lot of people want some help brought in, myself included. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But the reason a lot of people are skeptical is now there's been multiple miscues, in my opinion, during the Tom Fitzgerald administration. Now, I am not going to bring up every single one of them because I could start nitpicking and bring up tons. I'm trying to be fair about this. But while I don't expect any GM to be perfect, I do think there has been some big misses that have ultimately put us in the position we are in today, which is in a dogfight for our lives for a playoff spot. For those that think the playoffs is a guarantee, I'm here to tell you, look at the standings. Columbus and the Rangers are right on our heels for the division. If we slide into that wild card battle, there's 3, 4, 5 teams that are all capable of getting in, and the playoff berth is nowhere near guaranteed for this Devils club right now. They are going to need to play hard down the stretch of the season, and time is ticking. Now we get to the miscues. Amongst the miscues to me that were the most catastrophic, in Fitzy's first draft as the Devils general manager in 2020, they draft Alexander Holtz at number 7. I mean, my God, this is a massive miscue. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this one you have to look at and say, my God. Many wanted Askarov or some other guys, but in the end, Holtz never lived up to the expectation, and we ended up moving on from him with Akira Schmidt in that deal for Paul Cotter. Now, while I love Paul Cotter, to include the guy you drafted number 7 overall only 4 years prior to get a bottom 6 guy like Cotter, that is obviously not great asset management. And by not great, I mean absolutely horrific. That Holtz pick, terrible. Absolutely terrible. Number 7, he's never going to live up to that stock, and he may never even be an everyday NHL player. We're going to find out. But either way, that's a huge misstep right there, and we're paying the price for it today. And then you look at the 2022 draft, Shimo Nemitz at number 2. Many wanted Logan Cooley or Shane Wright, and surely either one of those guys would be helping this team currently. We would love to have either one of them on our roster right now. Instead, we have Shimo Nemitz, who is in this kind of purgatory, if you will, trying to make the lineup. The Devils aren't sure what to do with him. Casey's been playing the last couple games in his spot. Nemitz had the whole thing with the interview where he talked to the media and voiced his displeasure with not being in the lineup. Possibly a drama situation stewing there. And it is way too early to call this one, right? I mean, he's still very young. He could end up being a great defenseman for the Devils or elsewhere. But at the moment, many people are petrified that Nemitz could end up being Holtz 2.0. And again, a number 2 overall pick. So far, it's not looking great. I mean, I think most of us at the moment right now would rather have Shane Wright or Logan Cooley because they would be helping this roster right now. And Nemitz is, again, in this middle spot where we're talking about how good he might be in the future, but there's no guarantees. And again, too early to call, but as of right now, not looking so good. After the 22-23 season, he let Jesper Boquist walk in free agency. Now, at the time, I wasn't thrilled about it, but I wasn't angry. It just seemed like one of those things where, he's a casualty of depth, blah, blah, blah. But when you look back at that, again, Boquist is surely a guy that would be helping this roster right now. We are in desperate need of forward help, and we would love to have a guy like Boquist around. And then finally, I get to my biggest complaint. The biggest one for me in what I will call the missteps or miscues is throwing away last season. The 23-24 season, the season following a franchise record-setting season, which saw your New Jersey Devils get 112 points and beat the New York Rangers, our hated rivals, in a beautiful 7-game series. That was phenomenal. Winning that Game 7, oh, guys. If you haven't seen it, check out some of the videos on the channel. I have a ton from in the game and outside taunting Rangers fans. But what a great night in franchise history. Anytime you could beat the Rangers, it's always a great time. And in Game 7, Akira Schmid being the hero, what a time. But we follow up that season with last season where, again, not a great team overall. Injuries didn't help. Dougie went down. Jack was hurt. Everyone was hurt. Everyone missed time, and it was a painful one. With that, the defense was extremely porous at times, giving up grade A chances left and right, odd man rushes, you name it. It was happening, breakaways. But the goaltending was absolutely abysmal. Akira Schmid and Vitek Vanacek were just giving us terrible goaltending. I believe it was the actual league worst for a while, but it was abysmal. They did not give us a chance to win every night. It was demoralizing. I'm sure some of the players were demoralized after games where, we scored 3 or 4 goals and could have won the game if we got decent or adequate NHL goaltending, and we did not. And everyone was screaming for a goaltender sometime in January. And what did Tom Fitzgerald do? He sat by idly and did absolutely nothing. And I believe he said he hoped and wished. And then finally gets Jake Allen and Kakinen at the deadline when it was way too late. You couldn't make a move for either one of those guys or a comparable goaltender in even February. Had we gotten an NHL caliber goaltender in February, I do believe that last year's team could have scraped and clawed into the playoffs. Now, with that being said, this is a fundamental difference where I stand and a lot of the rest of you. But I would much rather scrape and claw and get into the playoffs and lose in the first round than to never make the playoffs at all. Now, a lot of people disagree with that. You're entitled to your opinion. I'll never agree with it. I do believe coming off the franchise record-setting season, vibes were good. Everyone was feeling good. The locker room was probably at an all-time high. A lot of those guys made it to the playoffs for the first time. And then to miss the following season, completely unacceptable in my opinion. And I do value the team making the playoffs, going through the process, going through those wars together as a team versus not making the playoffs and rubbing your hands about how you have a better draft pick now. I am completely anti-tanking. I am never trying to not try our best to improve a draft pick. I think that is complete nonsense, and it is a loser mentality. This franchise was once proud. I grew up watching the Dynasty Devils, as did many of you. Under Lou Lamoriello, we were trying to win the cup every single season. The playoffs was our birthright, and the only question was, can we win a cup or how far we could go? But it was a foregone conclusion that we were going to make the playoffs. And with this core at that juncture, that should have been the expectation. We are now a playoff team from here on out for the foreseeable future with this core in place. And the only question is how far can we go and when will we get a cup? And you could look back at teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning and tons of teams before them. Most teams don't just come out of nowhere and win a cup like that. It's a gradual process. They go on a couple runs. They might get to the second round. They might get to the conference finals. They go through those playoff wars together as a group, and then it finally all comes together and they win a cup. But to take a massive step backwards, in my opinion, to miss the playoffs last season, completely inexcusable. And I do believe any sort of adequate NHL goaltender could have gotten us into the playoffs. And again, I don't believe we would have went far in the playoffs, but making the playoffs is always better than not making the playoffs. And I do think we missed out on a valuable experience and lesson for the whole group. Just my 2 cents. I know a lot of you agree with me. I know a lot of you disagree. I will never change my viewpoint on that. I am firmly in the camp of you must try to make it to the playoffs at all costs every single season. And last year was another example of a season kind of lost. And I was furious about it. I talked about it after the fact, during the whole thing. Very upsetting to follow up the record-setting season with a complete dud and just a season flushed down the toilet, essentially, in my opinion. Completely ridiculous, and I'll never get over that. But we now are at the crossroads of this season, and Fitzy has a lot of choices to make here. What is he going to do? What is he not going to do? And I essentially believe there's 3 different routes that Fitz can go. 3 different routes. The first route, get aggressive and try to make some meaningful moves that will really help this team now. Now, what exactly would that look like, in my opinion? At a minimum, a top 6 guy and a bottom 6 guy. At a minimum. I do think this roster, realistically, is probably a top 6 guy and 3 bottom 6 guys away from being what you would call an optimal roster. But that's not all going to happen at the deadline. You have to be realistic. Some of those extra bottom 6 pieces could probably come, in this offseason, whether it's free agency or guys coming over from KHL like Gritsuk or maybe some other young kids in the organization pan out. But either way, we're not going to get everything fixed at the deadline. So people need to kind of have realistic expectations in that regard. But I do think a top 6 guy and a bottom 6 guy, or even maybe 2 bottom 6 guys, but 3 pieces is probably asking for a lot. I think as good as it gets would be a top 6 and a bottom 6. And that would be the preferred kind of scenario for me. I think a top 6 would be great. A bottom 6 guy that could help, preferably if they're both of the slightly physical variety. I've talked about physicality with this club for years. They are still sharp and soft. Unfortunately, overall, as a group, we only have a few guys that really embrace that playoff warfare style hockey. And we need a couple more dogs in this lineup to truly compete down the stretch and into the playoffs. Definitely need some more dogs. But scenario number 1, you try to make meaningful moves and kind of go for it. Scenario number 2 would be what I would call a half-assed attempt to make it look like you're trying. And something that would look like that, in my opinion, would be getting a single bottom 6 guy. Getting a single bottom 6 guy would be more than doing nothing. But essentially, that's kind of like, to me, that's you got a bottom 6 guy. You did something, but not nearly enough. That would be scenario number 2, in my opinion. Now, scenario number 3 is absolutely catastrophic, and you know where I'm going with this. Scenario number 3 would be doing absolutely nothing. Now, I don't think that's likely. I think it's possible, but I do believe in my heart of hearts that standing pat and doing absolutely nothing before the deadline would essentially be the same as last season. Hoping and wishing. You're hoping and wishing that the team can solve all the problems with the group they have. Now, I do think most of the issues are going to have to be solved from the group within. The guys that are already there are going to have to do most of the heavy lifting to turn this thing around. The top 6 has been inconsistent at times. The bottom 6 has been dreadful for long stretches of the season. Again, I'm not going to single guys out, but if you look at the production for the bottom 6, it's damn near non-existent, and you're not going anywhere with that type of production from your bottom 6. And furthermore, the top 6 has struggled on many nights and for stretches of the season as well. I do think it was a miscue to not obtain a top 6 guy before the season, but I understand how that all played out. With the free agent signings we made, there wasn't a ton of cap space. We still had the looming Mercer situation, and I'm sure they had an idea of where his number was going to come in. So there wasn't a lot of money to play with. Fitz took a low-risk, high-reward gamble on Tatar, hoping he could refine some magic that he had with Mercer and Nico in the 22-23 season. That obviously failed miserably, and so Tatar was not the answer for the top 6. We tried a budget fix, did not work, and now we have Palat playing with Jack and Jesper Bratt. I do like Palat. Obviously, he's overpaid. It is what it is. But that is obviously not ideal to have our 2 best offensive players in Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt playing with Palat. A legitimate top 6 forward on that line could make a world of a difference, not only to that line, but to the outcomes of games. I understand how we got here, but this is a mess that Fitz made, and he must fix it. And so now we see there's 1 week away to the deadline. And what is he going to do? Scenario 1, 2, or 3. Get aggressive and really try, make multiple moves. Scenario 2, you make 1 move and you give it that old college try where it was like, you're not really getting too aggressive. You're making 1 move so people can't attack you and said you did nothing. And then scenario 3, do absolutely nothing. I do believe it would be a monumental mistake for Fitz to not get at least 2 guys to help this roster before the deadline. Ideally, I would like it to be a top 6 and a bottom 6. I understand with the cap, there's constraints, and there's a whole bunch of things. The market is going to be a seller's market. There's a million teams in the thick of it for the wild card, so there might be significantly less sellers this season than there traditionally are because tons of teams are just trying to get in. And so guys that are made available, the price might be high. But that's what happens when you put yourself in this scenario. I mean, you have to look at Fitzgerald and say, you put yourself in this scenario. So to use the cop-out of the prices were too high and people were unreasonable, that's not going to cut it anymore. Because these needs were known. They were ignored. The team looked great. Everyone was happy. And now we've kind of come back down to earth. We're playing terrible in 2025. Consistently inconsistent. And the roster clearly needs help. And now he has to go get it. I would even settle for 2 bottom 6 guys. If they're the right types of guys, obviously we need a center desperately, preferably one that could win faceoffs. And another guy that, again, is preferably physical. We need some physicality. The team is too soft. We will get eaten alive if we do make it into the playoffs. And even if we slide into the playoffs right now, if the season ended tomorrow and we made it, no one's feeling good about this team going on a run. We probably would get handled in the first round. That is the sad reality. While I've constantly said I do believe Markstrom is a true X factor, assuming he comes back and looks like the guy he did before he got hurt, he could steal playoff games and an entire series. You just got to get to the dance, guys. Once the playoffs begin, anything can happen. Teams can start clicking and gelling at the right time. Goalies could steal games, steal series, and you never know what could happen. And that is why, for me, it is oh so crucial that you make a real push to get into the playoffs, because once that happens, all bets are off. Any single thing can happen. And so I am looking for Fitz personally to get at a minimum 2 bottom 6 guys. Now, would I be thrilled with that? No. But it's better than nothing. Obviously, the option of absolutely nothing would be catastrophic, and I can't imagine what people will be saying online. But I'm hoping he somehow brings in a top 6 guy and a bottom 6. I think that's the best we could do realistically at this deadline. But it's all stressful. 1 week to go. So many people, so many talking heads, and blah, blah, blah. The chatters everywhere. And I'm curious to know what you guys think. I already know what some of you think, but let me know in the comments, what do you think Fitz should be doing? What do you think he will be doing? And where do we go from here? Will this Devils team make the playoffs? Will they not? I still believe in my heart of hearts they will. Hopefully Markey comes back sooner than later and continues to play at the level he was before he got injured, but it's no guarantee. We're in one right now. This is a real battle, and we need reinforcements, and the reinforcements need to come in the next week before the trade deadline. Doing nothing would be catastrophic, and I can't imagine what the online Devils chatter will become. It will be at a fever pitch of people just losing their minds, and I think for good reason. But let me know in the comments what you think about all this. I talked about a lot. I will be coming out with multiple videos leading up to the deadline and afterwards. I might do a live during trade deadline day. A lot of trade deadline stuff, maybe some guys I would like to see brought in, will be coming out in the next few days. But let me know in the comments what you think's going to happen, what you think should happen. If I had to predict, I unfortunately believe that he does like the 1 bottom 6 acquisition. I hope I'm wrong. But for some reason, it just feels like that's going to be the outcome. And I really, really hope I'm wrong. There's guys out there that could help us. And if the price is high, the price is high. You made your bed. Now you must lie in it. And it might be time to make some hard decisions and move from some assets that you didn't plan on it. Or make some tough roster decisions. We're going to find out, guys. 1 week from today, I'm hoping he delivers and shocks us all. But throw it all out there in the comments. Anything, everything Devils hockey, throw it out there in the comments. I enjoy talking to all of you. I'll be back soon. Lots of stuff in the works as always, interviews and different things and yada, yada. And that's it. I'm at a low point right now, though, guys. I really am. The Devils really broke my heart with that Avalanche game. Back in action against the Utah Hockey Club tomorrow night. And then they're following it up with a back-to-back at Vegas against the Golden Knights. 2 huge games on this road trip. Got to get some points. Got to get some points. But that's it. That's all I got. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go Devils.